Going to introduce today's featured creative. Carrie Ziegler is an artist, environmental educator, and community engagement specialist who makes work in response to environmental and social justice issues. Going to turn this over to you, and I will spotlight your video.
All right, great, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to share a little bit about myself and more importantly, about the work I'm doing. So my plan today is to talk just a little, kind of a brief overview of some of my artwork, particularly the public artwork that I do. And then I'm going to go right into a workshop for the Chrysalis Project, Transforming Together. And so I'll probably spend about 10 or 15 minutes talking about my art. I've got some slides that I'm going to show you. Because it's public art, most of it's not in my home, so I can't just go and give you a studio tour around my place. Plus my internet's not quite good enough for that right now. And the workshop itself will probably be about a half an hour, and I'm going to ask that you, if you can, to stick around for that and then actually stick around and take action with me to create some art and write some letters asking for strong climate action in our community. I'm going to go ahead and share some images right now. Again, my name is Carrie Ziegler. I'm an artist and environmental educator, and I do a lot of community engagement with my work. I'm going to kind of break my little talk up into two parts, and the artwork that I chose is partly chosen because I already had them in other PowerPoint slides, so I didn't have a lot of time to put this together. So I invite you to check out my website, www.carrieziegler.com, to learn more about some of my other work as well. So I got started in public art doing murals, and you probably recognize this tree. This was phase 1 from the Olympia Rafa mural project downtown on the corner of 4th and Capitol. And so with this project, I had the pleasure of being able to design this particular image and take the role of lead painter in this. And I found that I just absolutely loved painting big on walls. There's something about it. I think it's the interactive element with the public that I just really enjoyed and got into. Let's see here. From there, I started painting some small but also really large murals. This is on the Woodland Trail, and it's about 220 feet long. But I also would fall back into just one thing I just love is to represent different aspects of nature that are maybe small in a macro version. So this is at Woodard Lane Co-housing. And a fun story about this project is that, as artists, we're always trying to figure out how to fund our work and whatnot. And this group of folks, they really wanted a mural, but they didn't have the funds for it. And I happened to be getting married at the time, and I needed help. So we actually bartered me painting this mural and facilitating this mural project with them for them helping out at my wedding. And I think we both came away feeling like we got the better end of the deal, which is how I like things to go. Now, one element that's present in almost all of my work is lots of other people. I tend to work really collaboratively. It's really kind of one of the core tenets of my work is that I bring lots of other people into the process, both the design and the execution whenever possible. This is at the Estuarium downtown. I'm sure many of you have seen that when you're coming down State Avenue. And there's actually a whole other half of this mural that we painted the following year after this original painting went up. Another great example of the macro becoming, or the micro becoming macro, is this mural, which is all covered with microscopic plankton blown up to this huge style. To give you a little sense of the scale, they're really large, and so I got to look through electron microscopes and look at all these different diagrams and then use my creative thought process to make these plankton just really come alive. And again, this is just, it's so much fun. People show up, they paint, we just kind of have a party with it. And I just absolutely love it. I always try to make the mural projects accessible to people of all different skill levels so that people can participate in whatever ways feel best for them. I've got quite a few other mural projects, but I want to just shift briefly, or quit right now, into my three-dimensional work, because this is what's really become the core of the work that I do right now. I have it. So what I love to do is I love to go into, to work with different organizations to do work around different environmental and social justice issues. And this was a project that's up right now. It's finished now. This is before it was complete, at the new Lacey Food Bank. And I worked with about 1,000, mostly students, some community members, teaching about how wasting less food can be a solution to both, you know, food insecurity and also climate change. I don't have many pictures of this up, so you'll have to check out my website if you want to see more, but it was a really intense, amazing project. The project that got my Art in Action projects really going is the Plastic Whale Project. And some of you may be familiar with this. It was done in 2012, and I was actually working for Thurston County Solid Waste at the time, doing environmental education. In this project, I chose this project to work with youth and adults to explore how plastic bags were impacting ourselves and our environment. And I worked with about 900 kids and adults, cutting and braiding plastic bags they brought from their homes, designing this part of the skeleton I designed with a group of students in an art class. It was made from about 95% upcycled materials. You can see the juice cups from school lunchrooms that students collected for the ribs of this project. And I mentioned this project for a couple of reasons. One, this was what the story of this project became so powerful that I was able to, it was able to help to pass and implement that ban on plastic bags in our community. And it was also so powerful for some of the people involved that students said that they felt personally responsible for that ban on plastic bags. So it was, you know, the idea that young people can feel like they can make a change in the world, in our government, just blows my mind. And it just made me know that this was something that I could contribute with my artwork in a way that was meaningful. This particular project, city council members would ask me to bring it to their meetings, which I didn't because it's 32 feet long and it was hard to move. But it did travel up and down the West Coast and over to Missoula as part of a reality television show called Shipping Wars. So all kinds of bizarre things happen with these projects. I could tell you stories about each one of them, but we're gonna have to save that for another time when I have more time to do a longer artist talk, because I really wanna get into the other work. This project is called the Butterfly Effect, and it is installed right now at the Thurston County Juvenile Court Building. I worked with about 700 youth and adults learning about how plastics can impact our bodies and the environment, but more importantly, how their personal choices can have a greater impact on the world around them. And this is when I really got involved in hanging art from strings, which I absolutely love. And this is great because each butterfly turns and twists in the light, and it has this wonderful effect. Another project that I did with the Lot Wet Science Center is the One Water, the Infinite Journey. And this was all about water conservation. Oops, I think I'm going a little, sorry about that. So I worked with schools and public community groups. I worked with about 1,400 people on this project, embossing aluminum water drops and making salmon out of this aluminum, and really just creating this story of water. This is installed at the Wet Science Center, and today it's still used as a way to teach about, sorry, I've got some transitions here that I didn't take out apparently, to teach about water conservation and how we can take part in do our own part in water conservation. Just briefly, I want to share about this project. I transitioned into, so I work with a lot of different mediums. To ask me what medium I work with, and I can just tell you, like, well, I usually work big, and the medium is really more important, like is really reflective on what the goals of the project are. So for this project, I was invited to work with students at Avanti High School to create an art piece that would be the central focus of their pollinator garden that they were building. And so we decided to create an art piece that was beautiful, could be used as a teaching tool, and was actually, oh, what's the word? Like it had another purpose as well. So it was actually functional, right? So inside of this concrete tree, this is made out of ferro cement, concrete over metal armature. is we put mason bee habitat, and the students that I worked with helped to create that habitat in there, and they helped with the design of the tree, and we worked together to create the design of the garden that is around it as well. I continue to come back to climate change a lot, and this is actually a collaboration of a couple different projects, but it's a mobile art piece that I can take to different festivals and events where people can really just start to talk about and write about their hopes and their worries with climate change. And I found that it to be really a great conversation starter and really interesting what people have written about when they come to write on these boards. And this was based on an art piece by another artist whose name I'm forgetting right now. But if that comes to me, I will let you know who that is because she's amazing. So again, like this is just a kind of a little smattering of my artwork, but I really want to share this workshop with you right now because it's what's really just alive for me right now is the Chrysalis Project transforming together. So I was able to so I've been working as a sole a sole proprietor of my own business for about the last 6 years. And I'm always kind of looking, seeing if there's any jobs that come up that might be something that I'm interested in. And I'm always like, no, 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 no. And then I saw this job posting by the Thurston Climate Action Team, TCAT, and I thought, well, I could do some community engagement around this. And so I applied and I got the job, and I started with no intention of doing artwork whatsoever with this job. But then the quarantine happened and nothing we were planning on doing before could be done. And so I had this great opportunity to come up with some new content that could be used for outreach. And I was like, well, I could give a workshop on the power of art. You know, I mean, I could totally do that. So I sat down to write it, what this workshop would be. And out of that came this whole art in action project, which I was not intending on doing at all, but it just sort of came through me. And I presented it to TCAT and they were like, yeah, let's do that. Let's try it out, was really what they said. And so I've been doing these workshops for a little while now, and it's been really powerful for me and many of the people involved. And so I'm going to just jump right in and do that, unless there are any quick comments that people want to make before I jump into that. And you can go ahead and write in the chat box. Maybe Nicole can help to monitor that if there is anything, or if you want to just real quick unmute yourself, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm just going to jump on in. All right, let's do it. So the Chrysalis Project, transforming together. This project, as I mentioned, is a collaboration with the Thurston Climate Action Team, TCAT. And they are a local nonprofit that are just really dedicated to bringing our community together to reduce climate disruption and working towards a healthy, just, and prosperous future for us all. And they've been doing super great work, and I'm so grateful to be working with them right now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the climate crisis and how that relates to the pandemic. And then we're going to switch gears and learn about butterflies. We're going to do a little bit of visioning together. And then we're going to shift right into writing letters and making art. And I hope that you can stick around for all of that. So I want to just acknowledge that we are in the midst of this pandemic. And it's can be really hard. I know that I've been having a lot of different feelings, and I'll be going along just fine, and then I'll like hear some random thing and I just be floored for a little bit, and like all these emotions will come up. So, you know, we may be feeling isolated or scared or grieving, and that's all totally normal, right? But what I want to kind of bring up is that while we are physically separated in this way, we've come together in a way as a world that we never have been before. And I think that brings, sorry, I'm going to pause this for just a sec. I think that brings with it a real opportunity for us to think about how we want to re-engage with the community and society in the future, and what we want to do from there. So for me, this has just become a really sacred time, a time of reflection and figuring out what's important for me personally and us as a species. Now, the pandemic, I think, gives us a glimpse of what we can see with climate change. And when I think about climate change, what comes to mind immediately is things like forest fires and giant weather events, droughts, you know, stronger hurricanes, all these like dramatic weather events. And that's totally true, and that's happening already right now. But some of the things that I see with what's going on with the pandemic that also relate to what we'll experience with climate change are the horrific things that are happening with our economy right now. I mean, our economy is in such a dire place throughout the world in many different ways. And that's only going to be more advanced with climate change. Equity, you know, I feel like we've just kind of drawn back the curtains, and now we can really see so much more how the inequity that we have in our communities, the lack of safety nets for people that are most vulnerable. We're experiencing some supply chain issues, some food shortages, and that's only likely to be more intensified with the climate crisis. Now, with climate change, those events are likely to be more localized, right? So maybe there'll be a hurricane in one area and it won't affect directly another area, but we're learning how linked we are, right? So if something happens on the other side of the world, it may completely, impact our own supply chains, maybe how we get our medicine and things like that. So it's really just a great, interesting way to look at what could happen in the future. You know, of course, we are already experiencing climate change, but it's not too late to prevent the worst of those impacts, but we really need to act now. The pandemic feels like it's going on forever, but in the scheme of things, it's going to only last for a fairly short time, where if we don't act now, the impacts of the climate crisis will be much, much longer. So I think one of the things that I think is really interesting is what some of the things we've learned from the pandemic. I know that I've learned in a new way that we need to listen to science, right? Like, I am not an epidemiologist. I don't know how to react to this pandemic. But I get to listen to the people who do know and react accordingly. We've learned in such a big way that we need to take care of each other. I mean, for a lot of us, we haven't been staying in our homes and not going to school for our own personal health. We've been doing that to take care of those who are more vulnerable, our friends and neighbors. And that what we're doing is such an act of love. It's just absolutely amazing. And we've also learned that we can respond to a crisis in a way that I don't think any of us realized we could do. I mean, the way we've shifted our whole world, like, it's all on its side, right? And yet, we're gonna, like, we can recover from this. The economy will come back. We'll come back. But I don't want to react to the climate crisis in the same way. I want to approach it systematically with intentionality, and we can totally do that. And so the pandemic and climate change, these are collective crises. And what we're in right now, I just see it as such an opportunity to emerge from our homes and re-engage in the economy in ways that are more life-sustaining and with lower carbon emissions. Whew, I know, it's hard. So I just want to share one thing that's happening locally, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later as well. But TCAT and a number of other folks led by the Thurston Regional Planning Council are in the middle of creating a Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. Now, this plan is essentially going to be a roadmap for our local governments to take strong climate action that will result in lower carbon emissions and stronger, healthier communities. That includes changes to how we use energy, construct buildings, do public transport, use land, even how many trees we plant. And it has some big benchmarks, right? So one goal is to reduce greenhouse gases by 45% by the year 2030 and by 85% by the year 2050. And they're mapping out how to get there with this plan. And it's coming along quite well right now. So but in order for this to be passed and then actually implemented, we need all of your support because it's too easy for something to get set on a shelf, right? So we need to be able to do our work to actually make sure that this gets implemented in our world, in our community, excuse me. I should say too, feel free as we're going along to, if anything comes to mind, take some notes, draw some pictures. You might want to use these later in your artwork that you create. So feel free to do that. Let's see, I might pause for another moment and just see if there's any thoughts before I move on.
I'll feel free to put stuff in the comments. There was a comment, Carrie, in the chat. Lynette said, "I'm stunned with the variety and amount of work you've produced. Congratulations." And I said, "I'm not crying, you're crying," because that was just really nice to listen to. Okay.
Thank you. And I got to say, like, this work that I'm doing with this project, like I said, it's really alive for me right now, but it's also forcing me to step into myself as an artist in a way that I haven't before. And so I almost always like cry a little bit during this workshop. Don't mind me. All right, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit. And yeah, please comments, questions in the chat box. That is great. And we're going to talk a little bit about butterflies. Signs of hope. We love butterflies. So vocab word. Does anybody know the plural of chrysalis? I didn't know it before, so it's a fun one. The plural of chrysalis is chrysalides. So there are many chrysalides hanging from the branch. We're all in our own homes, our own chrysalides right now. So you probably all know a little bit about the life cycle of a butterfly. Butterfly lays an egg, egg turns into a caterpillar, caterpillar builds a chrysalis around itself and eventually emerges as a beautiful butterfly. And that's about what I knew about it until recently. But I've learned that there's a lot more to it than that. And I'm gonna talk about that because I think that the process of transformation that this caterpillar undergoes to become a butterfly is a great metaphor for where we're all at right now. So, you know, caterpillars in their caterpillar life size, they enter this life cycle, they enter this feeding frenzy of overconsumption. You know, some caterpillars will strip trees bare, just trying to get enough food so that they can make their transformation. And then they begin to build this cocoon around themselves, right? This chrysalis. And you gotta ask yourself, like, does the caterpillar trust this process? Or does it feel like it's dying? I don't know. But what scientists have learned happens inside of the chrysalis is that the tissues melt into a virtually undifferentiated goo, a type of nutrient soup, if you will. And what remains are what scientists call imaginal cells. Now, these imaginal cells, they link together and become the template from which that goo reorganizes itself into a butterfly. At first, these imaginal cells, these seeds of future potential, which contain the blueprint of a flying creature, these imaginal cells operate independently as single-celled organisms. They are actually regarded as threats to the caterpillar's immune system. I kind of think the caterpillar feels like it's dying because the caterpillar's immune system actually attacks the imaginal cells. It's like, no, I'm comfortable being a caterpillar. Let's stay how things were. I don't know what's on the other side of that. And so it actually attacks those imaginal cells, those visionary cells, if you will. But the imaginal cells persist. They multiply. They connect with one another. The imaginal cells form clusters and clumps. They begin resonating at the same frequency and passing information back and forth until they hit a tipping point. And at that point, they begin acting not as discrete individual cells, but as a multicellular organism. And a butterfly is born. We are in the chrysalis of humanity right now. We are in that imaginal goo. We are the imaginal cells. This pandemic gives us a glimpse at what we will face with climate change. From this space, from this place where we are perhaps afraid, maybe in emotional or spiritual pain, maybe we don't know where next month's rent comes from. From this place, knowing that the impacts of climate change will be huge, and huger still if we don't act now. From this place, What do you want to see in our collective future? I'm gonna kind of shift gears once again, and I'm gonna ask you to do a little visioning with me. So if you can find a comfortable seated position, maybe with your feet flat on the floor. If it's comfortable for you to do so, close your eyes for a moment and tune into your breathing. Notice where you are. If there are others in your home with you, know that even though we are in separate places, we are all connected. What does the future you want to live in look like? How do people move from place to place? What do they prioritize? What is important to us? What is important to you? Where does your food come from? Where do you vacation? What do our homes look like? Our cities? What do our natural open spaces look like? What colors do you see? Are there shapes or images that come to mind? Are there words that stand out to you? What will you commit to doing to make this vision a reality? I ask you to bring your attention back to your breath. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. You want to take a moment to take a few notes, jot down any thoughts you have, make a quick sketch. If anything comes to mind you want to share in the chat box, please do. So today we are going to take action together with our hearts, and our words to create this vision for our future. I'm going to ask you to do a few things today, and we can do them together. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to write a letter to your local representatives asking them to take strong climate action. I'm going to ask you to then turn that paper over and draw or paint a butterfly using colors, shapes, patterns, words that will represent this future you want to create and want to live in. I'm going to ask you to then send your letter and your artwork through the mail to make a strong visual statement of what we want in our future to local representatives. And I'm also going to ask you to take photographs of your artwork, both your letter and your visual art, and send them to me. And I'll tell you how to do all of this, so don't worry about it. And I would love to use your artwork to create a large-scale installation that, when the time is right, we will have an unveiling for in town somewhere. As it's being created, this installation will be in its own chrysalis of sorts, in incubation, unseen and unknown. I have no idea what it's going to look like yet. And to that effort, I would invite anybody who's interested in being a part of a design workshop around that to let me know, because I love co-designing things and I want everybody's input on that. So let me know if you'd like to be involved in designing the installation. But so the installation, the idea is to really share this larger vision of all the people, what people have put together in a way that can create another large visual and possibly more than visual, maybe auditory impact as well, to inspire others to take action. So in order for this to work, we need a critical mass of people to do this, right? So I'm going to ask you to commit to writing your letter and making your artwork and sending it in, all right? So I'm going to ask you to use that chat box right now and say, yes, I'll do it. Because I think that, for me at least, if I don't actually make a commitment to doing something, it's too easy to set it aside and not do it. So I'm going to ask you when you feel, and if you want to wait until you see the whole, outline of the letter and everything, you can, but I'm going to ask you to go ahead and commit to doing this with us. I think that's where the power is at. Awesome. Thanks, Hillary and Callie. And yes, and I'm going to give you addresses and all that, so don't worry about it. All right, so what we are doing right now in our homes is so important, and that can be whatever it is for you. Like for me, it's doing this work with this Art in Action project, but it's also resting, and taking time to focus on what's in front of me, whether it's doing the dishes or spending time with my 3-year-old child. So what we're doing right now, it just has so much power. And I think it's really important to note too that resources, as I'm sure you know, are being drained in government due to the virus. And that is going to be used as a way to say that we don't have the money to take action around the climate. And so more importantly, it's more important than ever that we make a strong case for climate action. And I know this can feel like an impossible task, like what's my letter gonna do? But actually, I think that each individual letter is really powerful. I've already seen how powerful it can be. So I think that it is really powerful, but more importantly, we can do a lot more together than we can alone. And it's been proven that it only takes about 3.5% of the population working in nonviolent ways to create systemic change. And so we can do that, especially in a community our size. I think we can reach enough people to really create some strong change. So I'm going to leave that there right now. And I'm going to go ahead, unless there are questions, I'm going to walk you through how to do the art project, and then we can have more time to chat while people are doing the art. Okay. So for your letter, I'd ask you to, all you really need is a piece of paper and a pen. So then I'd ask you to write legibly. An 8.5 by 11-inch piece of computer paper works really well. And when that's done, then I'm just gonna ask you to turn it over and draw a butterfly. Then ideally, the butterfly would take up the whole space. But I have a thought of possibly, when I do the installation, printing them out and cutting them into the shape of a butterfly. But you're the artist, so you get to choose how that is. But for the letter themselves, here's a bit of a template that you can use for how to write your letter. And yes, I'll provide the email and mailing addresses for our local Thurston County representatives. So you can choose based on where you're at, who you want to send your letter to. If you're in Olympia, maybe you want to send it to the Olympia mayor and council members. If you're in unincorporated Thurston County, maybe county commissioners, etc. And Lacey and Tumwater are also involved in this, so all 4 jurisdictions. So with the letter, I can address it to whoever you think, and then I think introducing yourself and what you're doing right now and what you're feeling right now is really important. My name is Carrie, and right now I'm in my home, and my husband's going back to work on Monday, and I don't know how I'm going to continue to care for my child and work at the same time. But I'm also so grateful that he has a job, And right now I am doing these workshops to help get people involved in taking action for the climate. And then the second paragraph being, when I emerge from my home, I commit to doing X for the climate, and this is all about you. Make this you, right? So what can you commit to? Maybe it's living more in place. Maybe it's walking or biking or busing more. Maybe it's, you're going to transition for your next vehicle into an electric vehicle. Maybe it's using your votes to really only vote in people who support strong climate action. But make it you, right? What can you do? What do you want to do? And then the third paragraph is what you're asking your representative to do. Our suggestion being, I'm asking you to take strong climate action and pass and implement the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. Again, you can write this how you want to write it. This is just our suggestion. And I would try, if you can, to link what you're asking them to do with why this is important now in this time and place. And I'll put this back up again a little bit later so you can see that. But I also, so when you're done with your letter, you can then flip it over and create your artwork in whatever way works for you. I'm going to show just a few examples so you can get a sense of what some other people have done. This person used colors and patterns to create their butterfly and then just simply wrote, "Be the change." One participant drew their butterfly and used alliteration in different, each wing to talk about how she wanted the future to look and be. You might recognize this artist's work, Jennifer Kunz. She may not want me to share this because I know she was still working on the background, but just, you know, you can be creative with this. She's doing paper cuts. She did a paper cut, and it's absolutely stunning. Now, as a professional artist, I don't think she's going to send this directly in, but maybe take a photograph and send a copy of it, right? I don't expect you to give your, if you're a professional artist, to like give them some piece of art that you could otherwise sell and support yourself. This is from a student I worked with yesterday, I think it was yesterday, with their vision for the future. A stunning watercolor showing just a beautiful nature scene. And you could also, if it's more your style, create something on the computer. A teacher I worked with in a workshop the other day did this. She created this outline of the butterfly and put the colors in and wrote her letter directly on that. And one student made this stunning piece. She wrote her letter and then painted her butterfly on the back and then held it up to the light so you could actually see the artwork through the letter. And I just absolutely think this is gorgeous. So again, you write your letter, you create your butterfly art, take photos. You know, ideally take your photo straight on so it's not skewed, in a place where there's natural lighting but not direct sunlighting. I'll provide an email in the chat box, or a link, I'm sorry. I don't know that you're gonna get an email, but I'll provide a link in the chat box here for where you can upload photos. Our webpage, Thurston Climate Action, the Chrysalis Project, has all the information you need, so I'll put that in the chat box as well. And so you can go there and find, you know, templates to print out to draw your butterfly on, the letter template, all the addresses for mailing, and the link to download your photos. But I'll also directly put the link in the chat box. And then I'm gonna ask you to mail the letter, and if you can, please let me know that you did that. Okay, so I'll leave this letter up for a little bit here so that people can look at that. And otherwise, let's see, it's 11:40 right now. Feel like we're doing pretty good on time here. So I invite you to stick around and do this artwork with me if you can. And if you need to go, I totally get that. I'm gonna go ahead and actually I'm gonna stop this share for a minute so I can get that information in the chat box right away. And I think at this point, let's open it up to comments and questions about anything. And we can just hang out and make some art together.
Carrie, there's a couple of comments. I think you saw people committing, and then Susan said, what a great community builder. We're all together in this rebuilding.
Yeah, thank you. In the chat box, the link to our workshop, which has our website that has all the info on it, and then the Dropbox link. So if you can if you're able to take a photo directly onto your smartphone or with your computer or whatever, it makes it really easy to just click that link. And then if you might want to copy and paste it somewhere else because you might not finish during the time we're here, but click that link and then it walks you through just about 20 seconds uploading your photo after you have it done. I also want to share, I see that Heidi is here. Hi, Heidi.
Hi, sorry for being late for the presentation.
No all good. And Lucy is here also. I see, that's wonderful. So I wanted to also share, I'll put this back up in a little bit, the addresses as well. that I had the pleasure of painting a mural this last weekend, thanks to the Olympia Art Space Alliance. And Heidi Zargami, who's on this call, collaborated on this with me. So we each did one section of the mural and made them and collaborated to make them work together. So this is my section of the mural. I'm gonna and it's my response to, it's like my artwork for the Chrysalis Project here. So I'm gonna just show you a couple other images of that. So starting with the caterpillar, we added some words: release, transform. And this is kind of how I feel right now, right? Like in this chrysalis, in my home, transforming, pushing outwards, getting ready. We added words through it with the monarchs here: rest, receive, grow, attune, evolve, emerge, and expand. And this is Heidi's section of the mural. They flow from left to right, so hers is on the right-hand side. She wrote, breathing in, become, act with courage, rise, and inspire. And so I haven't gotten any pictures since we were like totally done, so you can see our setup there. And Heidi is signing her name. But it was such a gift to be able to do this for our community and to be able to get our artwork out in this way. I'll give this little thank you to some of our collaborators as well. So as a collaborative artist, I didn't make this art project in a vacuum. I talked to a lot of different people. I just made phone calls and I brainstormed. I did a Zoom call with some youth climate leaders, and it resulted in a project that was much better and much bigger than I could have done on my own. So I appreciate all of that. All right, I'll put this. Is it helpful to have this letter up right now? And here's the addresses.
Carrie, why would I want to send to one person? Like how do I decide who to send to? Oh, maybe it's based on geography.
I mean, I think you can send to anyone you want to. There are a couple of county commissioners who could probably use some pressure. I can't see the screen. Let me move this for a sec. So I know, like Ty Menzer, he's on board. John Hutchings, he received one letter early on via email, and I gotta tell you, his response was pretty awesome. As far as I know, he's not been a big climate action supporter, but he responded to this artwork saying, wow, this is so amazing. I'm so moved. I'm going to print this out. I'm going to frame it. I'm going to hang it on my wall. I'm going to put it on Facebook. I'm going to talk about it. And yes, I will do my part for climate action. So I think that more of that is good. And it seems like Gary Edwards could use a lot of pressure as well. I don't know the individuals who on either side of the fence in the other jurisdictions as much, but you could base it on geography. The other thing you could do is, so mailing it in, I think is really powerful to have that physical copy, but you could also, since you'll have digital copies, you could email it to folks too, and then you could get it to more people. You just like blind copy and make, put all these email addresses in and that way get it to many people.
Perfect, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Judy, did you have something to say?
Yes, I did. If we both snail mail it, they get it in their hands. But if we send the same thing electronically, then they can forward that very easily.
Yeah,
I do both.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's a great way to go.
Carrie, this is Allison. Do you mind if I say just a little bit?
No, go ahead.
This is Allison Osterberg, and I'm the coordinator for the Thirst and Climate Mitigation Plan that's being developed by the 4 jurisdictions. And Carrie invited me to sit in and learn more about what she was doing. It's such an amazing project. And I definitely don't want to hijack or make this about the climate mitigation plan, but if anyone does have questions or wants to learn more about the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, it's going to be coming out for public review in June, and we'll have a lot of, to the extent that we can have events, we'll be doing more public information, mostly online in June. And I'm happy to answer questions, not as part of this probably, but if anyone has questions, I'll put my contact information in the chat box, and you can feel free to reach out to me. And I just think that this is a beautiful project, and I really want to emphasize that. I see in working with elected officials, they're really receptive to comments they receive from their constituents and are very moved by them. And so this is your voices can be really, really powerful in a project like this. So I just want to thank Carrie for the work that she's doing and the work that all of you are doing.
I'm gonna put up a different, this slide here too. If you want a screenshot of the website where all that information is, you could take this as well. And you know, I should point out too that we don't all consider ourselves artists, and that's totally fine. And there's a lot of different ways to do this artwork, right? So some of us are more spoken word type people or poets. In my first workshop I did, there was a 17-year-old girl who wrote a poem inside of her butterfly and she read it out loud, and I literally started crying. It was so powerful. So feel free to like use your words and just whatever flows with you. And it does not have to be any one thing. It doesn't have to be a, you know, fabulous finished art piece. Like, I think that one of the things that's powerful about this is that it provides, there's just so much emotional content. And I don't know about you all, but as an artist, every time I share a piece of artwork, I'm like sharing a little piece of myself, and that takes a lot of courage and bravery. And so I think people mostly recognize that, like, wow, this person's sharing a piece of themselves with me, which is pretty powerful. Does anybody need any of these slides up anymore? Or otherwise I'm going to just stop this so we can see each other. And let me know if you need any of that up again.
In the comments, Sandra said, thank you so much. I don't consider myself an artist, but I will do my best. I bet you're going to do great, Sandra. Allison shared information for the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan and her email, if you'd like to grab that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be like, if anybody has something that they're working on, whether it's done or not, it would be also, it's been fun to, people have been showing their artworks on the screen. And that's been really just awesome and fun to be able to see some of that. Somebody said, is there a deadline? Not really. I mean, I think that like just for, I know for me, if I put something down for too long, I don't pick it up again. So how about I give you a deadline of next week?
And this would be like a done is better than perfect situation.
Totally. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I have a lot of art supplies, but right now I just have my work pad and a pen, and I just decided to do like a doodle situation.
Nice.